Hey everybody, welcome back to Gideon Stuff, and welcome to another round of Edge to Edge, the series where I take two knives and I compare them in a battle to see which one is better. Today's contestants are, as you know from reading the title, the CJRB Feldspar and the Kizer Begleiter 2. So, before we get into this, I want to say both of these knives have a bunch of different versions. Like, there are so many iterations of both of these models that it's kind of astounding. I own a bunch of the Feldspars. I have the button lock. I've got one of the ones with the flat scales. I've got two of the minis. You know, there's the tactical Feldspar. We're using the base model. For the Begleiter 2, I mean, gosh, there's the Begleiter 1. But I decided that I'm not going to use the Begleiter 1 because even though it's the OG, and you know, it would have been cool to compare OG to OG, I don't think Kizer makes the Begleiter 1 anymore. It's just the Begleiter 2, so that's what we're going to go with. There's a button lock version of the Begleiter 2. There's an XL version of the Begleiter. There are tons and tons of versions. But this is the one I have. So this is one we're going to use. This is kind of a standardized version too, if I can even say that, with 154 cm, and I mean, it's got the bearings. You can get G10, micarta, all kinds of different handles. This one's a liner lock. So this is what I would consider to be kind of a basic Begleiter. But all that out of the way, okay, let's go ahead and get this battle started. And maybe one day in the future I'll do like the button lock Feldspar versus button lock Begleiters, whatever. I don't really like button locks that much though, so yeah, we'll see. Okay, so starting off with our first category. Do you guys need me to explain the rules of how this works? I'm asking you as if I'm actually expecting an answer. We have 10 different categories. Each knife gets a point for whatever category they win in. Ties in the same category are possible. So, yeah. Okay, our first category is the blade. This is based on cutting performance and overall versatility of the knife blade in use. And this was a really, really hard one. Let's get into it. So, with the Begleiter, we have kind of a little bit of a clip point. Full flat grind, 154 cm. Nice, usable blade. On the Feldspar, we have D2 and kind of a spear point, drop point type of blade. Very pokey, much broader. This was a really, really tough category, but I'm going to give it to the Feldspar. And here's why. This is a little bit thinner behind the edge initially, but they're both flat grinds. And this blade's just a little bit shorter. And so I see you getting a lot more long-term use out of this, out of the Feldspar, and I find it to be a more versatile blade. You have a very fine, acute tip for piercing and poking. You have enough straight and enough belly to do some slicing, to do some push cuts. It's a very robust blade, and I think it's going to serve more people better. You can do, you know, basic EDC stuff with it. You can do a little bit of, I don't know, push it to some harder use stuff. I'm not saying it's a hard use blade, but you know, it can stand up to a little bit more than this one, perhaps. Now, don't get me wrong, the Begleiter has an amazing blade. It really does. Great EDC blade, but I'm gonna give the win to the Feldspar just because it's a little more versatile. I guess that's the other thing I should address too, is if you guys have been watching this channel for a long time, you know that I love the Feldspar. I am trying to be as non-partial as possible. And in fact, spoiler alert, there are some categories where this one gets its ass whooped. So, with that out of the way, our next category is the ergonomics. This one was also very close because the Begleiter has very good ergonomics for what it is, but the Feldspar is just better ergonomically. Bigger handle, a little bit wider, these contoured scales with the inset liners. The pocket clip disappears a little bit better in my hand on the Feldspar. Very, very comfortable. You can choke up a little bit. Very, very ergonomic knife. One of the most comfy knives in my collection. So yeah, the win goes to the Feldspar. Next, materials. And oh, this is tough because CJRB is, they're making the Feldspar an AR RPM 9 now, and I think their goal is to move all their models to AR RPM 9, but I don't think they've done it quite yet. So between these two, if this was AR RPM 9, it would win, but between these two, with the micarta or G10, you know, you can get handle materials basically the same, but the blades, the blades, I stutter like a Looney Tunes character sometimes. 154 cm, I do prefer over D2. I don't hate D2, but I do like 154 cm more. I think it's a little bit more premium, and I think a lot of people would agree with me that it's a little bit nicer. If this was an AR RPM 9, I do have a couple of Feldspars in AR RPM 9, but if this was an AR RPM 9, it would win. When CJRB moves all these to AR RPM 9, the Feldspar will win. But yeah, as for now, we're going to give the win to the Begleiter. So, 2-1. Fit and finish. Ooh, this one was tough. The Feldspar is made very well, and it has a lot of elements that I really, really like the pivot collar, the contoured scales, the inset liners, and CJRB has been getting really, really good with their fit and finish. But I do think that the Kizer beats it out just barely. I mean, this Kizer is made very, very well, as you'd expect, because it's quite a bit more expensive. But yeah, the Begleiter definitely ties things up in this round. Excellent fit and finish, very well put together. Okay, moving on to our fifth category, the value. 100% goes to the Feldspar. 100%. You can get these for 35 to 40 bucks. These come in at like 60 to 70. Feldspar wins all day, every day. Fantastic value. You are getting a lot of knife for your money. You're getting a lot of good knife. I knew I want to compare these two because there's a lot of similarities, at least in my mind. They're both kind of flagship models for their respective brands. They're both kind of, you know, thumb stud EDC budget knives. But I knew right away that this would win the value category because CJRB just kicks it out of the park with their value. So yeah, a win to the CJRB, pulling ahead. Action. It's got to go to the Begleiter. Out of the box. Oh, it's fantastic. The Feldspar does not have a bad action either. It's got a great detent, and but that just falls closed. The win's got to go to the Begleiter. It's got to. So Begleiter tying everything up again. Next category, fidget factor. So yeah, this is different than action, but the Begleiter still wins. Fantastic fidget factor. This knife is a lot of fun to play with. It's a good size for fidgeting. You know, this is more of a meaty man, full-size knife. You know, and so it's, you know, you get out and work knife, right? This is a good fidgeting knife. Super fun action. Very snappy detent, great size for just sitting down, messing around with. So, yeah, there we go. Okay, so what are we at so far? I was meant to be keeping score off screen here. Whoops. Begleiter, Feldspar. Okay, there we go. Had to write down my little notes there. Okay, so our next category is carry. So both of these have reversible clips, which is awesome. This knife is smaller, so it carries better just, via that mechanism. However, this knife does not carry bad at all. This one has a great clip. I do like the clip on the Feldspars. This one does not have recessed screws, but it doesn't really bother this knife, and all the rest of them do. It's inset to the scale, which I like. This one, flat screws, but no, it's not recessed. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm going to give them a tie for carry, just because I could honestly go either way on these. So we will just give them a tie. Alrighty, moving on to our construction. So this is, more based on design. And this is hard. This is hard because, as we already discovered the fit and finish, this knife is built very, very well. However, I'm going to give construction to the Feldspar just because it has some things that I really appreciate in a knife, especially one that's this inexpensive. The inset liners is really cool. Reversible clip with the inset. You have the pivot collar, this stonewash. Let's look at that. Mine's all dirty from use, but beautiful, beautiful stonewash on here. This knife feels a lot more expensive than it is, and that has a lot to do with the choices they made in putting this together. So that's why it's going to take a win in the construction department. Also, it just feels solid as a tank. Very, very, very solid feeling. This knife just feels a little more flimsy to me. It's not necessarily, but it's got that rattly sound, and we're gonna give construction to the Feldspar. And we are completely tied up. Holy cow. We are tied up. Our last category is X Factor. So this is just kind of which one of these knives has more of a presence, which one of these is more well respected in the community, well known. And I'll be honest, I think it used to be the Feldspar. I think it's the Begleiter now. Kizer's really been making strides, and you see how many different versions of this knife they make. I think it's a very popular knife. I think it's a very respected knife in the community, and I think it's one of those just kind of timeless designs. I think all of that can be said about the Feldspar as well, especially on my channel. But I think the Begleiter I think it's kind of starting to, it's always been very popular, but I think, with the Begleiter 2, it's kind of been reaching new levels of popularity. So I think we're going to give it to the Begleiter. Which means that the Begleiter won this round, which is shocking and surprising on my channel because you guys know how much I love this knife. And I do like this knife more than the Begleiter, but you can't go wrong with either one. Honestly, I would recommend the Feldspar first because it's cheaper. It's a really good knife. Ooh, almost sneezed. It's a little more versatile. But, they are both really good knives. And, hey, you know your EDC better than I do. So whichever one fits you better, you can't go wrong with either. All right, that's going to wrap it up for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, leave it a like, comment below, and subscribe. I've been Gideon. I hope you have a great day. Adios.